At the end of last year, the child tax credit was allowed to expire, and what do you know? The following month, just last month, child poverty rose significantly. Nobody could have seen it coming. But we do have the numbers. The Center on Poverty and Social Policy at Columbia University said that the child poverty rate rose from 12% in December to 17% last month, an approximately 41% increase in 1 month. That almost seems impossible, but America found a way. We are number one. The study found that an additional 3.7 million children are now in poverty relative to the end of December, with Black and Latino children seeing the biggest percentage point increases. And all it took was taking away one of the most beloved and successful social programs of the past few decades. And all that it was for a portion of last year, from July to December, parents received monthly payments worth up to $250 per child, as much as $300 if the children were under 6 years old. 61 million children benefited from this program, encompassing 36 million households. And so it was incredibly popular, and that dropped child poverty by about a third. Then you get rid of it, it goes back up by 41%. All of this, of course, happening during an absolutely terrible public health emergency with a number of different economic knock-on effects from that emergency. And so it was popular, it was working, but the White House was unable to secure an extension of it. And in fact, Senator Joe Manchin raised multiple objections to the child benefit and said it was discouraging parents from working, which we wouldn't want that. I mean, what's worse than that? Certainly not millions of children going hungry every single day. Virtually all Republicans also, of course, opposed the child tax credit. And Washington was really worried about the deficit and stuff, and they were really worried about people taking advantage of the system. So they killed it. And what do you know? 40% or so increase in child poverty in 1 month.
So guys, it's not theoretical, it's real. And it's not just a statistic, it's 3.7 million American children are now back in poverty. I want to show you the two people most responsible. These are the monsters named Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. And they single-handedly said, yeah, we're gonna drive those kids back into poverty. And they did. So these are the guys, these are the villains. And again, that's not theoretical. It was their votes that made sure that Build Back Better with child tax credit could not pass. So you're looking at the two people isn't that amazing? Just two people.
Such power.
Drove nearly 4 million kids into poverty. And they couldn't care less. Okay, now let me show you the guy who is the indifferent leader that allowed them to do it without a fight at all. And his name is Joe Biden. Where's your fight? Where's your fight? You're gonna brag, you care about your own legacy, of course. Everybody in Washington is obsessed with only one thing, their effing ego, right? And before he was bragging, oh, look at all the big kids we lifted out of poverty. Then Manchin said, no, shut up, go away, I'm not passing your bill. And Joe Biden said, okay, sure, I'm fine, there's no problem at all. Where's your fight? Where's your fight? Nowhere, okay? Now, I'm thrilled to tell you, you can no longer brag about it. Okay, I know you were gonna, oh my ego, oh my legacy, my legacy. Well, now you don't have a legacy either because you don't actually care. When it came to the infrastructure bill that all of your donors benefited from, then we saw Joe Biden fight. He went and told progressives, you better pass it, okay? Manchin says no to Build Back Better in the child tax credit. He's like, oh, okay, fine, no problem at all. We're moving on. We moved on to voting rights. Oh, we didn't pass that either. I'm moving on from that. What are you not gonna move on from? So they drove those children back into poverty. Look, we'll give you we're not the fake left. We'll also tell you the reality that every Republican is a monster. If you don't know that by now, because you're listening to right wing or fake left or whoever you're listening to, every Republican is against those children. They happily, gleefully drove them back into poverty, okay? So, but the Republicans are not in charge, the Democrats are, so this one is on them. They said they would do it and they didn't.
And it's just part of this pig-headed American exceptionalism that feeds our bodies to market gods. We're still in a pandemic. We're just getting over yet another variant, right? Knock on wood, there's not another. But of course, if there is, Biden's gonna say, you didn't see it coming. How was I supposed to know? Oh my God, you need a mask? Oh, what for? But put on your mask. It is insane. It is always blame the victim in this country. It is always pull yourself up from the bootstraps in the middle of an effing pandemic. And look, guys, $250 to $300 a month to lift 4 million children out of poverty is not a lot of money, right? It shows you how many people in this country, these aren't children, right? Children aren't owning their own bank accounts by themselves. These are families. These are families who can't afford, as we all know, an unexpected $400 expense. These are families with $250 a month. They can do so much more. Meanwhile, you got the NYPD busting thieves for stealing baby formula and posing next to it like it's a meth bust.
Yep.
Come on, and we're supposed to care about petty crime when people are stealing stuff for their children, their babies. So again, like we're doing, as Cenk and I covered yesterday, $770 billion for the defense budget, and yet untold amount of money we could be making, we could be saving. Where's the money gonna come from? If you pay for universal paid leave, family leave, sick leave, if you have expanded healthcare benefits, let alone Medicare for all, if you have universal childcare, if you extend the child tax credit, my God, we would be so much wealthier than we are, and we would live up to the idea that we are the best democracy on earth.
Yeah, and oh my God, so like this has affected obviously all sorts of families. Let's bear in mind, how many conservative families back into poverty now? Oh, those populists, those right-wing populists of Fox News are going to be so angry tonight. Tucker Carlson is gonna do 40 minutes about those millions of conservative families who are gonna be suffering as a result of this. We're gonna talk in a little bit about political consequences of this sort of thing. It is bad enough if you have been dwelling in poverty, ruled over by a government that has never cared and has never helped you. Heads up to Biden. What do you think the people will do after they got a little bit of help for a few months and then were cast back into poverty? Might they be a little bit more angry, actually? And I also want you to remember, everybody is rightfully angry about this story and the numbers that we just gave you. And they should be. These are the people that are worst off. They've sunk back into poverty. These are not the only people that have been negatively affected by getting rid of that child tax credit. That is the people who shifted below the threshold for poverty. Many, many millions more families have shifted, not necessarily across that arbitrary line, but their lives have now become materially more difficult. Tens of millions of families' lives are now harder as a result of this. I do have one good thing, because I know you like when politicians call out other politicians. I have an example of that on this particular issue. AOC tweeted in response to this, one US senator heard stories about people allegedly using the child tax credit for drugs without any evidence or data to back it up. He then used that as justification and nuked the entire national program, causing millions of kids to fall into poverty in weeks. Horrifying. Meanwhile, the press talks about it like it's some Beltway drama without ever showing the people who are sleeping in bubble jackets with no heat, or the kids going hungry waiting for some guy in a yacht to decide if they were fully human or not. It's just shameful, all of it.
There you go. Yes, I do love that. And again, it's not to vent, it's strategic. You have to put pressure on Joe Manchin. Unfortunately, AOC and the few just Democrats fighting out there are in a vacuum, because the media just thinks Manchin is cinema or God's gift to humanity. They're so moderate representing their state. As we've told you a million times, it's not remotely true. It is not the moderate position. The child tax credit polls at over 70% across America. The moderate position is to do the child tax credit, and they are not popular in their home states. These provisions, the child tax credit is intensely popular in West Virginia and in Arizona. Any member of the press that tells you Manchin is doing it because of his home state is a liar, or is an incompetent buffoon that wouldn't know the facts if it slapped him across the face. Now, last two things from me. So all of the fake hand-wringing that Francesca referred to in Washington, Stephen Ratner, former Obama official and Wall Street tycoon, putting out an op-ed today saying, we can't do Build Back Better in any of these provisions because of the deficit. First of all, Build Back Better is deficit neutral. He says, okay, yeah, theoretically, but I don't believe it. You know what is not deficit neutral? The defense bill. The defense bill is not at all, doesn't care about the deficit, just piles $800 billion on top of the deficit. It is over 4 times larger than the entire Build Back Better, let alone the child tax credit, which is a very small part of Build Back Better. Did Steve Ratner rant about that? Nope, didn't care at all, because he's a liar. He doesn't care about defense. Bill, he doesn't care about the deficit, he doesn't care about debt, all he cares about is money, 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 not to you, to his beloved corporations instead. Which leads me to my final point. Why? Why would you kill a program this popular? If you're a Democrat, aren't you at least interested in self-preservation? So why wouldn't you pass something that everybody in blue and red states loves? Maybe they might love Democrats if you kept it. No, the donor class says they're getting too much money. It's driving our prices up, the wages we have to pay labor up.
Yep.
We have labor shortages because we gave them crumbs and now they can live off of crumbs, $250 a month. Now I can't pay them starvation slave wages anymore. So make sure you take away the crumbs and back to the mines. And the politicians say, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. Even if it means their own career jumps off a cliff, but don't worry, it won't, because the press will always cover for them and tell you that they're wonderful moderates who are representing their voters, when that is nothing but a huge, disgusting lie.
It's funny, I agree with you, Cenk, on the last point that they talk about Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin as if they were moderates. But I think the other thing is we've seen that they covered them wall to wall and only about Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, and they were obsessed with them. They just are too afraid to mention the donors. They don't talk about all the handouts that Joe Manchin has gotten, all the money that he's made off of the coal industry. They're not talking about the backdoor deals that Kyrsten Sinema is making with trade industries or pharmaceutical companies. They're not talking about any of that. It's almost like they were just sort of woke up and decided to stymie the bill because they must have some sort of moderate centrist little fairy dust that told them that this is gonna be bad for us later. No, there's nothing magic about it. It is the money.
Yeah.
And I was talking about this on the Bituation Room, but we were talking about with the revolving door project, Max Moran, who was like, look, we need to make enemies. We need to stop being afraid. Liberals, centrists need to stop being afraid of making enemies. We won't get anything done unless you make an enemy of the corporate and the 1%, of the corporate class and the 1%. Otherwise, it's like, gee, where did all this poverty come from? I mean, it's the hot dog situation perpetually.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.